Vivek Ramaswamy, welcome to The Issue Is.
It's good to be on with you. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Congratulations on the run.
Thank you.
I know not that long ago you weren't even that interested in politics.
That's correct.
And then after the birth of your son, you got interested in it. You wrote 3 books, and now you're running for president. What makes you think that you're the most qualified person to be the leader of the free world?
Look, I think it takes a unique combination in the presidency right now. I do believe we need an outsider. I share a deep skepticism with the likes of Nixon, with the likes of Trump, for the administrative state. So take someone coming in from the outside willing to shut that down. But at the same time, it has to be an outsider who has a deep understanding of the Constitution and the laws of this country. And I think I bring that rare combination as also a voice from a new generation. Young people in this country have lost their sense of national pride. I feel a sense of responsibility as someone who has lived the full arc of the American dream to pass on that American dream to the next generation. And I believe that I'm the best positioned person in this race to achieve that.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about your backstory, because I think for a lot of people, they're just getting to know you for the first time.
That's right.
In terms of the work that you did, how has that shaped your worldview?
Well, a lot of my career has been tackling bureaucracy. I took on the bureaucracy of Big Pharma. It is a deeply bureaucratic industry that creates all sorts of inefficiency that, at least as an entrepreneur, I was able to take advantage of. Certain drugs that pharma did not develop that had real potential for patients, I developed them. 5 of them are FDA-approved products today. That was the backbone of creating a multi-billion-dollar biotech company. I then took on the bureaucracy of what I call the ESG industrial complex in America. BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, managing over $20 trillion, using the money of everyday retirees to foist political ideologies into corporate America where there was no competition. I built a competitor, offering an ESG alternative in the form of Strive. And so my entire career has been, if the pack runs this way, I go the other way, especially when it involves taking on an entrenched bureaucracy. And so now that's a big part of my motivation to take on what I think of as the biggest bureaucracy of all in our country. That's the one that resides and festers, really, in the federal government. And I think by taking that on, we will revive the integrity of our constitutional republic itself. That is also how we go on to stimulate the American economy, something that we've been missing for a very long time.
Let's talk for a moment about the state of the race.
Yes.
As we speak, we just found out on this day that there was this memo from Ron DeSantis' super PAC
I saw that,
saying that he should target you, essentially. What do you make of the fact that that's what Ron DeSantis' team is saying, target Ramaswamy?
I think the memo had some further choice words beyond target, but we'll leave it at that. I think that was the takeaway point. What it says is, listen, I think that many professional politicians are threatened by my rise, and that's understandable. These are people who have been working in the partisan hierarchy for a long time. I'm coming in as an outsider, shaking that up. A lot of people feel threatened by that. Frankly, I've been taking a lot of attacks over the last month as a consequence. I do think it's a bit of a shame, though, in our party, because I look at other governors, even governors like Ron DeSantis, and view them as colleagues in this national revival. I'm going to need each of them to play their role. I think Ron DeSantis is an excellent governor of Florida and can continue to be one for the next several years. I'm going to need him in reviving this country. But I think that professional politicians, I think one of the things they often do is they attack other candidates as a substitute for finding their own message. And if there's one thing that I'm focused on in this campaign, it is delivering my message of national identity and national revival without apology.
You think Ron DeSantis is scared of you?
I think certainly his campaign is obviously scared. That was what the 17 pages with a lot of colorful detail in that memo reflected today. And actually, I was surprised, but in some ways it's unsurprising when you think about it, because they don't know how to react to an outsider that comes in as changing up the game. And so, I don't blame them for feeling like they're on their back foots.
Okay, so you're going to be on this debate stage
Yes.
with all of these folks who have been doing this for a very long time.
They have.
What's your strategy for debate night?
If you want to take a look at it, the other candidates, I understand, have canceled their schedules this week and are doing debate prep. I'm in 8 states in these 7 days because my best form of debate prep is actually talking to voters. I don't like being in a cloistered corner office, getting coaching from political consultants on how many times I'm supposed to make a particular point or which lines I'm supposed to use to attack some other guy on stage. Apparently that's how others do it. I think the best way to do this is to continue to have honest, authentic conversations with voters, speak the truth, be uninhibited. I will be uninhibited on the debate stage, that's for sure. But I think that that's the way we've been running this whole campaign, so that's nothing new.
We don't know if Trump's going to be on the debate stage, but right now he's leading this race. And,
He is.
And to be the king, you got to beat the king.
Yep.
And I know you say that you want him to be a mentor to you when you're the president, but there's
Yes.
some folks that look at this and say, why not have both of you? Why not have him as president, you as VP, or you in his cabinet? What do you say to people that say that see, why don't you work with Trump?
Well, as I said, I do expect to work with Trump, having him as an advisor when I'm in the White House. But the truth is, this isn't about me and it isn't about Trump. It's a question of how we move our America First agenda even further and how we unite this country in the process. And I think I am the best positioned person in this race to reach the next generation of Americans who are badly disaffected, not only from politics, but from our culture, that are lost, hungering for purpose and meaning and lacking it. And honest to God, I don't believe that Donald Trump or really any other candidate in this race is going to be able to reach those young people in the same way that I am. The other thing is, I think this cannot be a 50.1 election. It just can't. I think it's going to be potentially a disaster for the nation if it is. This needs to be a Reagan 1980 style, 1984 style moral mandate that reunites this country. And so do I believe that I would be better positioned to deliver that moral mandate as a vice president with Trump as the top of the ticket, or with me as president and Trump helping me, volunteering as an advisor? Definitely the latter. I'm going to be in a position to deliver that, and I think that's important.
So your message to Trump voters is you get a better shot at winning with me.
Winning in a landslide with me. That's absolutely right. And it's not just winning in a landslide. It is having the moral mandate to go further than Trump did with the America First agenda. Not just, building the wall, which is important. I'll finish the wall. But using the military to close those gaps in the southern border. Not just putting Betsy DeVos on top of the Department of Education, but shutting it down. That is not a 50.1 mandate. That has got to be a moral mandate, and that's what I'm confident that I will deliver.
And you need some probably help in Congress to do some of that stuff, too.
We can debate that, but I still think that broadly, the broad mandate the president governs with, some of it will certainly have to go through the legislative branch, some of it can be run straight through the executive branch. Either way, though, this has to be a Reagan-style mandate.
So you're here at the Nixon Library to
Yes.
talk about your foreign policy vision.
That's correct.
How would you succinctly describe the Ramaswamy doctrine?
Moving from the liberal hegemony neoconservative model to realism in our foreign policy. Put the interests of America first without apology. Be clear about it. That's the hallmark of our foreign policy going forward. I favor a modern Monroe Doctrine. The top priority of the U.S. military should be to defend the homeland. You don't mess with the United States of America on our own soil. You do not mess with the United States of America in our Western Hemisphere. That'll be the North Star of my foreign policy. That means we're not okay with Chinese spy balloons, with Chinese spy bases in Cuba, spying on the southeast corridor of this country. We are not okay with pumping fentanyl across our southern border as part of a one-sided opium war, not of drug use, but more of poisoning, lacing Percocet and other drugs with fentanyl. That's unacceptable in this country. But it also means that rather than using our own military to secure an invasion across somebody else's border, say in Ukraine, we will instead use our own military to secure our own southern border, end the war in Ukraine, deter China from going after Taiwan with strategic clarity instead of ambiguity. The strategic clarity is that we would do so until we achieve semiconductor independence, at which point our commitments change. Be clear about that. That makes our commitments to other countries more credible. It allows us to be more effective at achieving our own ends, avoiding war in the process, because the other countries know that they're dealing with a nation whose leader advances the self-interest of that nation. That will enhance trust in both directions, and that's exactly how I will lead.
And in terms of Ukraine, you have a very specific roadmap of what you would do in Ukraine, essentially freeze things the way they are now. Right?
I do. I would freeze the current lines of control. I would further make a commitment that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO. But in return, I will require that Vladimir Putin exit his military partnership with Xi Jinping. That, I think, is the single greatest military threat that the United States faces, is the Russia-China military alliance. I think that I will further advance our interests while ending the Ukraine war by pulling the two of them apart. Fitting to discuss that here at the Nixon Library today. because it is a reverse maneuver of what Nixon did in 1972, with Mao Zedong pulling him out of Brezhnev-led USSR's arms. I'm making the same move, except this time Putin is the new Mao. And the establishment, including in the Biden administration, is intensely focused on getting Xi Jinping to dump Vladimir Putin without success. What I'll do is the reverse of what Nixon did. I will go to Moscow and make sure that Vladimir Putin dumps Xi Jinping instead. That is how we win.
A lot of the GOP base is actually with you, but a
so.
lot of the GOP donors and GOP establishment and a lot of the other competitors in this race are not.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
It is a mystery to me. I have to be very honest with you. I cannot quite figure it out. I have lost donors, multiple potential major donors, over this particular policy position. And the tempting thing to say was, well, they have financial interests in Raytheon or Lockheed Martin. No, I don't think that's it at all. I think there's something more institutional with respect to believing that there's an era of holding on to our power that the establishment in both parties really feels like they relish but will miss once it's gone. And my message to them is, no, you've got it all wrong. We will be more powerful if we are strong at home. And believe me, we're not today. Our foreign misadventures have caused us to leave gaping holes in the security of the homeland when it comes to super EMP capabilities, nuclear defense capabilities, talking about cyber attack defense capabilities, our space-based defense capabilities. These are badly behind where they need to be. And so under my watch, our national defense spending and investment will go back to being about defense of the homeland. If we can help other countries, even like Israel, develop an Iron Dome, that's great for them. I think we need the equivalent of an Iron Dome here in the United States vis-a-vis nuclear, super EMP, cyber, and space-based threats.
As we talk with Vivek Ramaswamy, on the issue of national security, you want to shut down the FBI. What happens when there's tremendous lawsuits, when there's a tremendous fight on that, when some people say our national security is threatened? How do you actually do that?
There's two different questions. One's legal, one's practical. I'll start with the practical. My plan to shut down the FBI is actually going to increase the effectiveness of our law enforcement at the federal level. The 20,000 bureaucrats that sit in the J. Edgar Hoover building of the FBI, they can go home, find honest work in the private sector. The remaining 15,000 that are agents on the front lines elsewhere, now, we're going to reorganize them. We'll move some of them to the U.S. Marshals, which have done a much better job of taking on certain crimes that the FBI hasn't. The DEA, better at taking on the drug epidemic than the FBI directly. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network for complex white-collar crime. This is actually greater specialization, which increases effectiveness. At the same time, it reduces bureaucratic rot, reduces the risk of corruption. And yes, I, as U.S. President, have the legal authority to do it. For example, under the 1977 Presidential Reorganization Act. Under certain narrow circumstances, one of them is whether a president is reducing redundant federal agencies. For the reasons I just described to you, I believe the FBI is redundant. That gives me the authority to act without asking Congress for permission or for forgiveness. Will we be sued? Of course we will. Some aggrieved employees will sue, maybe thousands of them. We will take that to the Supreme Court. The current Supreme Court agrees 6-3 with me on this. That's how we drive change on the timescale of history, not just a one-off win. Codify that in judicial precedent so the next president won't have his hands tied in the same way that mine are today.
A California question. The biggest issue in California right now is homelessness. What would you do as president to help fix the homeless problem in California?
I think a big part of what we need to do is get the federal government out of the way of subsidizing it. There are a lot of indirect ways in which the federal government is actively giving people incentives to be homeless because of the so-called aid that we provide. A big part of the problem, though, is a mental health epidemic in our country. I think we need to restore a sense of purpose and meaning in our population, even amongst veterans, many of whom are homeless. I think that's a deeper part of this campaign, is restore that sense of national identity and purpose. At a much more practical level, I also think that closing the southern border will help this problem. That stops the influx of fentanyl and other drugs into this country, stops the influx of migrants who enter this country illegally. I also think that it is a moment in our country where we need to make the hard choice to remove psychiatrically ill, dangerous people from their communities. That's something we have to be willing to do if we care about addressing the crime and homelessness problems that California and frankly other states like it across the country are facing today in a way that shamefully is actually on the rise rather than the decline.
As we talk to Vivek Ramaswamy, I want to get to know you a little bit better and talk about fatherhood. You are now father of two pretty young kids.
Yes.
Which must be tough doing that and being on the road at the same time. How has fatherhood changed you and shaped your worldview?
It's given me a greater sense of purpose, to be honest with you. If I looked at the things I'm doing, building companies or writing books or now running for U.S. president as a trade-off from being a father and how do you balance the two, I mean, there's no balance. It's impossible to do. It'd be a losing proposition. What we're doing is we're pursuing this adventure as a family together. And truly, the fact that I have my two sons makes the work that I'm doing now all the more meaningful to me personally. It doesn't feel like sacrifice. It feels like just my duty, actually, not just as a president of this country, but as a father of two sons who will grow up in that country. That is the true inheritance I want to give them, not the inheritance of, green pieces of paper, as much as the inheritance of a nation that allows them to live the same American dream, dare I say a greater American dream, than the one that even I had the chance to grow up in.
Well, you talk a lot about the fact that family is kind of missing in our discussion right
yes,
now.
Yes, it is.
'Cause really, I think for a lot of people, the appeal of you is not just some of this policy stuff, but it's sort of the broader concept that you're talking about.
An ordering of what matters in our culture. And I think that reviving the value of each individual, the family, the nation, God, that is what we are running to. That is what this campaign is all about, and I'm really grateful that we had a good chance to begin to talk about it today.
Okay, two real quick wrap up. Okay.
They would need me now. Yeah.
30 seconds. Okay. This is a game we play called Personal Issues.
Okay.
This is to get to know you quick. This is rapid fire, the first thing that comes to mind, okay? What's your favorite TV show of all time?
The Jeffersons.
Oh, nice.
I kind of like that.
Favorite movie of all time?
Gladiator and Interstellar, both.
Interesting. Favorite book of all time?
So many to choose from. Probably Friedrich von Hayek's Constitution of Liberty.
All right. Who's your role model?
Thomas Jefferson.
Interesting. Favorite rapper of all time?
Eminem, no doubt.
And what's the best rap lyric of all time?
A lyric. Success is my only option.
Vivek Ramaswamy, thank you so much.
Good seeing you.
Appreciate
I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good time.